Hello everyone, this is the sixth game in the World Championship match between Wilhelm Steinitz and Mikhail Chigorin, which was played in Havanna in 1889. So Steinitz sticks with his move, knight f3, d5, d4, right? And Chigorin as well sticks to his main weapon against it, and now c4. And after bishop takes f3, g takes f3, again, it's the same line that was before, but now that was in the game 4. But now Chigorin plays d takes c4 because that e6 was a stupid move, because his e5 pawn, his e pawn should get to e5 without losing a tempo. And here, for example, after e4, now e5, so not losing time with e6 previously. So after d takes c5, Steinitz decides to win a pawn instead of bishop takes c4. But after bishop takes c4, bishop b4 check, bishop d2, I mean king f1 was possible, but why? And bishop takes d2 and knight takes d2. Well, Steinitz didn't want to go in for this. So after e5, Steinitz takes this pawn, and he knows that c4 pawn will also fall, so he's thinking that he will win a pawn. But of course his pawns are doubled. Queen takes d1, king takes d1, and now knight c6. Chigorin plays his pet move. Now f4, protecting the pawn. Because, yeah, he could take this, but after castles, king would move and then knight would take on e5. And this is just wrong. So after knight c6, f4, first protecting it, and then Steinitz will take on c4. So rook d8 was played. So Chigorin's decision not to castle is very interesting. His thoughts probably are that, well, first king is needed in the middle if the pieces get traded off, and also pawn on f7 might get weak after Steinitz recaptures the pawn. So he wants to preempt the endgame and also keep protecting the f7 pawn. Interesting. So bishop d2, because it was a check. And now bishop c5, attacking the f2 pawn. Now, of course, here f3 could not have been played, because then b5 and black clings onto that pawn, which is not nice. So after bishop c5, rook g1 was played, attacking the pawn on g7. Steinitz is counterattacking now. So knight ge7. Chigorin defends tactically, and now bishop takes c4. Finally, Steinitz recaptures. Of course, after knight g7, rook takes g7 is not possible because knight g6 traps the rook. And of course, Steinitz could play f5, but Chigorin could play king f8 and win the exchange. So after bishop takes c4, Chigorin plays knight g6, and here now he's threatening to take on f4 because the bishop is pinned. Steinitz's bishop is pinned. Now king c1 unpinning. Now if king e1, then knight d4, threatening knight c2 check, and this is just not nice. So after knight g6, king c1 was played, and now bishop takes f2. Chigorin gets the pawn, and now rook g2, bishop moves back, and then knight c3. Standard moves so far. And now knight d4, Chigorin has an idea, a very interesting idea. Now Steinitz plays knight d5, counterattacking that bishop, and now knight f3, attacking this bishop. Here, Steinitz plays knight takes b6. That was a better move, but okay, let's see this. So bishop c3, knight takes f4, knight takes f4, bishop e3 check. This already looks risky. King c2, bishop takes f4. There is a key move here, rook f1, but this doesn't win a piece because knight d4 check, and now bishop takes d4, rook takes d4, bishop takes f7, king takes f7, rook takes f4 check, and king e6. Looks better than the game, but it was hard to see through all these complications. So Steinitz just went for knight takes b6. Now knight takes d2, rook takes d2, and now a takes b6. Rook takes d8, king takes d8, and bishop takes f7. Steinitz gets a pawn. But knight takes f4, Chigorin recaptures the pawn, and we have reached this endgame, where black seems better because white's central pawns are weak. So Steinitz gets the king to d2, and now rook f8, attacking the bishop. Bishop moves back, and now knight g6. Here, Steinitz played e6. Now Steinitz could have played rook g1, but it looks very scary to allow this rook f2 check, king c3, and rook takes h2. But perhaps Steinitz missed that bishop g8, this weird move wins back the pawn. So after knight g6, just Steinitz played e6, just pushing the pawn forward. And now king e7 from Chigorin, and now rook g1. Rook had to develop somewhere, right? I mean, putting it on e1 is stupid, and putting it on c1 would be stupid as well, because c6 and that rook is cut off. That rook would be doing nothing there. So rook g1 is okay. So at least it ties the knight down. Rook f2 check, king e3, and rook takes h2. Now Chigorin has two connected passed pawns. Rook g5, Steinitz counterattacks. There is a possibility to play rook f1, because now it is very risky, because knight e5, rook f5, and now black will have to give up an exchange, or he will be slightly worse. Because here king d6 is unplayable because of rook takes c5, king takes c5, and e7. So this was an interesting continuation, but Steinitz didn't go for this. He played rook g5. And here Chigorin plays rook h3 check, king d4, and now rook f3. Now Chigorin correctly assesses that the only threat that black has is via the f-file, so he takes it immediately. Now rook b5 was played. Now Steinitz has an idea here. This looks crazy, right? He's attacking a pawn that's defended by a pawn. But after knight f4, a4 was played. Now Steinitz starts a risky pawn race. Now who will win this pawn race? First of all, instead of a4, rook f5 seemed like an only defense. But you know, after knight e2 check, this looks very risky. Now rook takes f5, e takes f5, knight c1 attacking the bishop, bishop c4, and now b5, giving up this doubled pawn, and now knight takes a2. Where black is a pawn up, but Steinitz has some counterplay. He has passed pawns. But this is very risky, because I think rook f5, this knight e2 check looks just crazy to allow. But of course, black would still be better in the final position. So after knight f4, Steinitz gambles, plays a4, thinking that his pawn is fast as well as black's. But h5, now Chigorin's pawn starts moving, a5, h4, and now a takes b6. Now here Steinitz hoped for, well, of course, c takes b6, and then rook takes b6, and then rook takes b7, and white is, of course, fine there. But instead c6, and now Chigorin gives him cold shower, because this just locks the position for a bit to give enough time for Chigorin to queen. After rook f5, knight e2 check, king moves, and now rook takes f5, e takes f5, and now h3. The black king makes a dark square blockade, so of course the pawns cannot queen. And now bishop a4 was played by Steinitz, a nice try, h2, but this is something spectacular from Chigorin. After bishop takes c6, b takes c6, and b7, it seems that Steinitz will also have a queen, right? Well, not so fast. Chigorin has everything under control. Chigorin plays h1 queen, and after b8 queen, queen c1, and Steinitz now realized that his king can't go to the d-file, because the knight is protecting d4, and basically he has to move to the b-file, because and also pawn is protecting the d5 square, and d6 square is covered by the king. So the only way that Steinitz can continue the game is just to play on b-file, and afterwards queen takes b2 will win a queen. a brilliant game from Chigorin, especially the end game, right? It was a fine end game, really, with a brilliant calculation at the end. No wonder Fischer considered Chigorin one of the best, if not the best endgame player of his era. He gave up the bishop and then defeated Steinitz in a knight versus bishop endgame. It was a great performance, not only showing the soundness of his ideas, but also playing some quality endgame. Thank you.